Ricci tonight, a family's call for accountability.
Refused to let us see or speak to our son for 6 hours.
This man fell to his death from a Toronto apartment building after an interaction with police. Now his family is speaking out. Plus,
they located a 27-year-old male that's been taken in custody.
A man has been arrested after a stabbing at a Whitby motel. We'll have the latest from the scene. And
this is the beginning of the RSV season and the beginning of the influenza season.
Some patients are waiting up to 12 hours to see a doctor in the emergency department at Sick Kids. Why health professionals fear the situation could get worse. The family of a man who died during an interaction with police earlier this month is speaking out. The 32-year-old fell from a 16-story apartment hours after police arrived on scene. The SIU is investigating. Greg Ross has the latest.
He was suffering from severe depression and he should not have lost his life for that.
Vanessa Persaud is Tarish Bobby Remroop's sister. She says on October 13th, her brother was in need of someone trained to deal with mental health issues, not police officers.
We will never understand why these weapons, tactics, or officers were necessary when we as a family did not place this call for police.
But somebody did call police that day. Witnesses say it was because Remroop was throwing objects from his balcony on the 16th floor of this Finch Avenue apartment building.
An air conditioning, a fan that, those like fans on a stand that spin left and right, a TV screen, a lot of clothes, and a lot of paper.
This man works at a daycare center on the bottom floor of the building.
That day, the concern was real, we all stayed inside and no one went outside at all.
But it's what happened after police arrived that has the family concerned.
My oldest brother, who was home with Tarish at the time, was demanded to get out of the house.
They say as other family members began to arrive at the building, they were all ushered into the superintendent's office and told to stay there.
We begged them for 6 hours to speak to our son during the interaction they were having with Bobby. They refused to let us see or speak to our son for 6 hours.
The family says there were a number of police officers there, and they say Remroop was treated more like a criminal than a person in need.
This was essentially like a sting operation. This was multiple officers on rooftops in neighboring apartments, and somehow none of them were able to help and support this man.
According to police, Remroop had barricaded himself in a bedroom. They say their procedures call for a higher level response when somebody is barricaded. They say they had 2 emergency task force officers on scene who were trained in crisis negotiation, and they claim that at no time did their officers physically engage with Remroop. Police say they had also called a psychiatrist and was en route, but Remroop died before they arrived. Witnesses say Remroop climbed out a window on the 16th floor of this building. They say he was hanging there for several minutes before falling to his death. The family believes he was trying to escape police.
We're asking for all body cam footage from all officers.
The SIU is now investigating. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
The Toronto Police Service held the first in a series of town halls tonight to brief members of the public on the findings of its first ever race-based data collection strategy.
We've taken what I'd call a question and answer type approach. So instead of just saying, well, here's the data and here's what it does, here's what it says, we've asked our community members through the 12-member community advisory panel to ask questions on behalf of the community.
The findings were initially released to the public last June. It found Black people were overrepresented in use of force incidents compared to their share of total enforcement actions. Stats also say Black people were 2.2 times more likely to be subjected to enforcement actions and that the level of force tended to be more severe. Police are holding the town halls in an effort to be more transparent. The town halls will take place over the next 6 months. A stabbing at a Whitby motel has left one person in life-threatening condition tonight. Patrick Swadden was on scene and has the latest.
Me and my boyfriend were just laying in bed and we just start hearing screaming.
Cheyenne Blue says the two of them didn't think much of a noise coming from a nearby motel room.
And then we just started hearing ow a bunch of times, so then we come out of our room. Yeah, screaming on top of our lungs.
She says it didn't take long before there were police cars everywhere and the sound of helicopters above.
We responded for a very violent stabbing that occurred at this location.
Police say the attack happened here in a Motel 6 just off Highway 401 in Whitby.
They responded to calls just after 3 p.m. this afternoon and found a male victim with multiple stab wounds. He was rushed to a Toronto trauma center.
The male is in life-threatening condition at this point.
Duty Inspector Cedarum says the suspect took off immediately after the attack.
Officers converged on this location to look for an outstanding suspect that fled from this location into a green belt just east of here.
Cedarum says the K-9 unit, Air 1, and officers from multiple units were on scene. They located a 27-year-old male suspect shortly after and have taken him into custody.
The male is now charged with aggravated assault.
Police aren't able to say whether the suspect and victim knew each other, nor are they able to provide details about the victim, including his age. Officers from Durham Police's forensics unit are currently investigating. Patrick Swadden, CBC News, Whitby.
Durham Region officers were honored at the service's Police Appreciation Dinner and Awards ceremony tonight.
I think we just need to look at the recent past where officers have been killed in the line of duty, and it's important for our members to see how much we are appreciated in the community. So just getting together in a positive environment like this speaks so much to our members. It certainly means so much to me.
The gala was organized by community members to recognize the work done by officers. Durham's top cop was joined by a special guest tonight. Mini Chief Gabriel Peruccio served as chief for the day earlier this week. As part of the job, the students spent time with traffic services and even got to fly over his school in a police helicopter. Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now for a look at the forecast. I guess those warmer days we had recently couldn't stick around forever.
Yeah, we've seen those temperatures kind of reset there back towards seasonal, and it does mean we have a cooler night ahead. And because of that, areas, that haven't seen a hard freeze yet, well, we get into these frost advisories from Environment Canada. And for the City of Toronto, we have a frost advisory tonight. You can see it extends up into Brampton, over towards Mississauga, Oakville, around towards Burlington. And then it picks up again for the Niagara region. So there's still a chance some of that vegetation can be preserved or protected. So you want to take some action on that. And then just having a look at the daytime highs from today and what it means to be back closer to seasonal. A little milder towards Ottawa as that cold air was still filtering in. But otherwise, we're talking about, in many cases, barely getting to double digits for daytime highs. There we are tonight. Mostly clear skies. A few patches of cloud kind of coming through the overnight hours, and that'll help a couple of pockets not to be as cold, but mostly we're talking close to freezing. Tomorrow we get into mostly sunny skies, especially for those afternoon hours, and 11 for that daytime high. And we'll take a peek at the weekend and Halloween coming up.
Thanks, Colette. A GO Transit strike that could have gone into effect as soon as Monday has been averted for now, according to an internal memo from Metrolinx. 2,200 drivers, safety attendants, and maintenance staff had set a strike deadline of October 31st if a deal wasn't reached. Now, Metrolinx says the Amalgamated Transit Union Local 1587, which represents those staff, is presenting a new deal to its members next week. The contract between the union and Metrolinx expired in April. Workers want protections against contracting out their work. Mayor John Tory is promising to make immediate improvements to city services by launching a series of initiatives to clean up Toronto's streets and public spaces.
A graffiti blitz is now underway by municipal licensing and standards to address graffiti complaints. This blitz will tackle the some 1,000 graffiti complaints.
Tory says he's directing city staff to undertake a graffiti blitz on both public and private property. He says the blitz will get underway immediately and will involve the removal of graffiti from bridges, underpasses, transit lines, parks, and waterfront properties. He also promises to tackle overflowing clothing drop boxes and address repair needs at city arenas. Fresh off his re-election to a third term on Monday, Tory says he wants to make sure that the city will be committed to providing services at the high level that residents should expect. Toronto's Hospital for Sick Children is dealing with unprecedented wait times right now. Health professionals say a combination of different viruses and ongoing staff shortages are behind the problem. Tonight, there are concerns that things could get even worse. Ali Chiasson reports.
Toronto's Hospital for Sick Children is now seeing more than 300 kids in the emergency department a day. Peak wait times have exceeded more than 12 hours to see a doctor. It's being blamed on a perfect storm of staffing shortages and flu season and COVID-19 and a surge in respiratory syncytial virus, the pathogen Tyler Graham has come down with.
This horrible wheezing, not able to catch a breath, cough, fever.
3-year-old Tyler was in need of care right away, but Sick Kids isn't the only hospital struggling right now.
We live in Oakville, but there weren't any beds available anywhere, so they had to send us to London. And now we've spent another 3-4 nights in the peds ward here trying to recover and wean him off his oxygen. It was horrible.
Thankfully, Tyler's on the road to recovery.
Are you feeling better?
Yeah. But if he wasn't able to get timely care, who knows how much worse it could have gotten.
When we were initially making the transit from Oakville to London, there was 0 beds. I mean, you know, we heard some of the phone calls of the stress of the current doctor just knowing he needed more care and it not being available to us. That is really hard to hear and go through.
Just like the flu, RSV is treatable. It's just that hospitals are lacking the space and manpower to manage all of these illnesses at once.
This is the beginning of the RSV season and the beginning of the influenza season, so I think it's only going to get worse.
Pediatric infectious disease specialist Dr. Anna Banerjee says medical professionals outside the hospitals need to step up.
We also need people like family doctors and pediatricians in their offices to start seeing kids in person again and start taking the load off of the hospitals.
And parents?
If a child is going in because they have a fever and a runny nose, they shouldn't be going into the emergency department. They should be, going somewhere else.
Just like what Dr. Anna Banerjee said just there, Sick Kids Hospital is also urging families to choose another option other than bringing their kids to an emergency room unless it's an absolute emergency. And just like any respiratory illness, to lessen your child's chances of contracting RSV, masks are recommended. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto. With the healthcare sector still recovering from COVID-19, we're learning tonight that billions of dollars in that workforce is going unspent this year. A new report from the province's Financial Accountability Office is projecting a budget surplus for the year, and that could be the norm going forward. Lorenda Redekop explains.
Bottom line, we're seeing surpluses. We're seeing a crap load of money sitting in contingency that is unusually high.
The Financial Accountability Office says normally a contingency fund could be around $1 billion a year, but it expects over the next 6 years the Ontario government will have almost $44 billion.
These are very high contingency funds, and it doesn't really shed a lot of transparency as to what the government really thinks it's going to do with these programs.
At the same time, the financial watchdog estimates huge spending shortfalls across every government program sector. That's all that red you see. The biggest is in health, only fully funded this year, but over the next 6 years with a projected $23 billion shortfall. For education, the underfunding is almost $6 billion, but the FAO says the government could get rid of all the shortfalls, the total $40 billion, by using the contingency money. Finance Minister Peter Bethlen-Falvey was asked about this.
These are very uncertain times, and that's why it's always the prudent thing to do, to make sure that we've got contingencies in place so that we can face any challenge that we may have.
All 3 opposition parties responded.
Underfunding healthcare when the system's in crisis by $23 billion, why ERs are closing, people can't access the healthcare they need, is hurting people.
So you have a government that's actually benefiting from the high cost of living, and yet they're not passing on those savings to the people that we serve.
And as for those shortfalls,
in my opinion, they're doing that because it gives a picture that we don't have the money to pay education and healthcare workers the money they deserve.
The Financial Accountability Officer says Ontario is on the knife's edge of a recession with high inflation and rising interest rates.
We're not in recession territory yet. We don't think there will be one, but we think we're close.
The FAO also projects the government will continue to run surpluses. However, the most recent budget from the government projects 5 years of deficits. Updated numbers will come in the fall economic statement in the next few weeks. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. Provincial police are putting up a $50,000 reward in hopes of solving a 6-year cold case. Karen Thompson went missing in July 2016 in Etobicoke. Her family is hoping this new appeal will lead to information.
I would like the public to know that just that my mom has 4 kids and now 2 grandchildren that very much miss her, and lots of friends as well. And we would love to know where she is.
Foul play is suspected in the 43-year-old's disappearance. Police say Thompson had ties to numerous areas in Ontario, including Alliston, Oakville, Scarborough, Dufferin County, and Hamilton. She's described as 5'10", 130 pounds, and had long blonde hair when she was last seen. Anyone with information is asked to contact Crime Stoppers. More Canadians are using food banks than ever before. Visits are up by 35% since before the pandemic. That's according to a newly released report by Food Banks Canada. The high price of groceries is an obvious factor, but so are the costs of rent.
Most of the people who use food banks are renters, and when you're spending, anything above 30% is considered a crisis, but people are spending, 60, 70, 80% of their income on rent.
The head of Food Banks Canada says people who live alone represent nearly half of the people who rely on food banks, and about 500,000 food bank clients are children. Seniors and students are also making more visits. Well, with food bank visits up, one centre in North York is in need of a new location in order to serve its clients. Society for the Living is being priced out by a new landlord. Dale Manukduk has that story from CBC Toronto's Jane and Finch Community Bureau.
By the time I pay the rent, there is nothing left. High food costs, high rent, low social assistance. I come here a lot, but I notice now the line has tripled. I came even last week, and the line was so long all the way down to the end. By the time you get up, sometimes there's not much left.
That woman, who CBC agreed to keep anonymous, was one of many waiting, bundled up in the cold. Her grocery buggy in line with the others to hold a place in line to get fresh veggies, canned goods, and other items from Society for the Living Food Bank.
I'm not eating how I should eat, but I'm just thankful some days just for a meal.
Demand for food in North York has skyrocketed, which made it particularly devastating when the food bank lost its physical space of 24 years on Eddystone Avenue.
A space now is very important for us. It's our concern, and we really need another place. Right now we are homeless. We don't have a place on our own.
According to the food bank, a new landlord who was within their rights raised the rent from $1,450 per month to nearly $4,000, forcing them to leave. All of the remaining tenants are struggling to keep up. Some are also considering leaving. Society for the Living now operates out of 3 shipping containers at 2 outdoor locations, including the Toronto Public Library at Jane and Shepherd, where service was today. But there is a silver lining to merging nonprofits with the public sector.
In most cases, very accessible to individuals. They're located on transit routes. They're safe and welcoming spaces. So they're great places to locate a food program. And then when people come to those programs, they have access to a wider range of services.
Speaking of more services, a new permanent home would allow Society for the Living to get back to full programming.
Before, we used to do our breakfast program where members would come in and have tea, breakfast as they wait for their food.
With the winter months fast approaching, being sheltered indoors would be a big help for clients. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
There's a live look at our city skyline tonight, sitting at around 5 degrees after a sunny fall day. Colette's back now with our extended forecast, and what are the next few days looking like?
We have a few things kind of going on. We've seen our temperatures back towards seasonal, and we're looking at a cooler night than ahead. I was talking earlier in the show and showing you the areas for the frost advisory, including for the city of Toronto. So know about that, a chillier night ahead, and to get things going tomorrow, it takes a bit of time to see that temperature rising, even with some sunshine. The sun's getting up a little bit later, so even for the bus stop, things can be a little bit cool. We'll be down close to freezing for that overnight temperature, even 8 o'clock, though. We're talking in many cases where the temperature temperatures still only going to be around 2 or 3 degrees. Seasonal for the daytime highs. Right now that is 11, so around there, but with a lot of sunshine as we go into another dry spells for tomorrow and into the weekend. It would be nice if that could just last through Halloween, right? For the costume's sake, for the kids' sake, but there is a chance of showers still into Monday. It looks like it'll be somewhat scattered and lighter in nature, so that's on the positive side, and also that temperatures will be seasonal, so not one of those super cold Halloweens like we sometimes can have. Through the overnight hours here, you can see just a little bit of this cloud cover. There's more to the north, but a little bit very patchy, and this is why frost in some cases may be a little bit patchy too. You might get just a little bit of protection from that cloud as it comes through, so there's not as much radiational cooling, as we say, but there'll be plenty of that through the overnight hours, dropping those temperatures down. A nice setup with high pressure. It does mean a little extra cloud cover earlier in the day for the Niagara region tomorrow, but otherwise we do get into that sunshine, and we'll see that especially into Saturday as well, and then clouds will kind of increase on Sunday. Those temperatures then through the overnight hours, they dip down. They will eventually dip and then popping back up as we get towards 8 a.m., but not very far. So that's why I was mentioning kids, make sure you've got them kind of bundled up and ready for the bus stop. And a little bit later in the day, they can peel some of those layers off as we head towards 11 degrees, 13 on Saturday. Sunday, 11 again with more clouds, scattered showers into Monday, hopefully tapering off by the evening hours. And then we get into a bit of a warm-up that's coming back our way again as we go towards midweek next week.
Thanks, Colette. A severe labor shortage in this country's manufacturing sector cost the Canadian economy almost $13 billion over this past year. That's according to an industry group survey of nearly 600 companies in 17 industries. The annual survey by Canadian manufacturers and exporters found that 4 in 5 companies are facing shortages. It says they're having trouble finding skilled tradespeople. The group says it's being hit by the retirements of aging baby boomers. Finally tonight, with Halloween around the corner, it's not just little ghouls and goblins getting into costume. Dogs and their human companions dressed up and took to the stage in Florida. Costumes on display range from pirates and mermaids, rock stars and unicorns, to characters from the movies Beetlejuice and the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Proceeds will benefit a local animal charity. And that's our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Good night.